In this episode of Lost Watch, we will be talking about video games once again, but I'm changing it up a bit. This time, we will be talking about a certain video game console. It was never released in America, Europe, or even Japan. It was released by Nintendo in China in 2003, during the ban of home video game consoles, as well as the massive popularity of pirated reproductions. Nintendo figured out how to get around this ban, and with the help from their newly created Chinese-founded company iQue, we will be talking about their only home console release. This is the iQue Player. In order to understand the iQue Player, we need to start with Nintendo's biggest home console release of all time, the Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64 came out in 1996 after two major delays, with the first causing the Virtual Boy to come out, which nobody likes now. But the wait for the Nintendo 64 was certainly worth it. Nintendo brought famous IPs like Mario, Zelda, Kirby, and Donkey Kong to the third dimension, along with creating beloved franchises like Banjo-Kazooie, Super Smash Bros., Mario Party, and GoldenEye. The Nintendo 64 changed the world of gaming. It was Nintendo's first console to have built-in 4-player multiplayer support. Games like Mario Kart 64 and Smash Bros., as well as GoldenEye only playing Oddjob, and Mario Party took advantage of the multiplayer functionality and brought people together in such a new way that it changed the world of multiplayer games. Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time were also monumental games. Both brought the two biggest Nintendo mascots into the third dimension so perfectly that they set the tone for the whole gaming industry on how to make 3D games during the transition into the 21st century. Overall, the Nintendo 64 sold over 32 million consoles, surpassing the GameCube and the Wii U in sales all the way back in the late 90s. Fun fact, Time magazine also named the Nintendo 64 the 1996 Machine of the Year, stating that what the console did for gaming was like what the Boeing 737 did for air travel. In the year 2000, the Chinese government banned home video game consoles as they thought that playing video games was harmful to young people, threatened state security, and disrupted social order. This hurt the gaming industry hard in China, even after the ban was lifted in 2015. Nintendo during this ban wanted to curb the software piracy in China and also bypass the ban to help slow the production of pirated games and to enter, in their minds, an untapped potential market. As stated by the late Satoru Iwata back in 2003,
"We have targeted people in developed countries such as Japan, the US, and Europe with sophisticated machines, to reach a wide range of people in China, especially those inland who are not as rich as those in coastal areas. We thought we needed to deliver a cheaper console."
To support Nintendo and its expansion into China, they got the help from Dr. Wei Yan, a Chinese-American entrepreneur and software developer who previously worked with Nintendo on the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube. After negotiations, the joint company iQue was founded in 2002, with their headquarters based in Suzhou, China. Iwata explained,
Yen is best suited to run Nintendo's business in China because of his Chinese-American background and understanding of Nintendo.
iQue was created to release Nintendo's consoles inside China in order to get around the ban of production of video games inland and the ban of shipments from Japan enforced at the time. In iQue's time from 2002 to 2013, the brand would release the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Advance SP, Game Boy Micro, DS, DS Lite, DSi, and 3DS XL in China, all under the iQue name. They also released their only home console in 2003, which is our topic for this episode of Lost Watch, the iQue Player. The iQue Player was released on November 17th, 2003.
Basically, it's a Nintendo 64 packed into a controller, similar to the wacky plug-and-play consoles released in the 2000s. It was the only home console released by iQue and the first home console released by Nintendo that was modified dramatically from its original version. There are 5 major changes between the iQue player and the original Nintendo 64. First, all the games play just like their N64 counterparts, but the text is in simplified Chinese rather than English or Japanese. Second, since the iQue player is running off of one chip, as well as having more RAM built in, games are loaded faster than their N64 counterparts, something speedrunners like I could take advantage of. Third, games that use the rumble functionality had this feature removed, due to the fact that the iQue player does not have rumble support, but games like Super Mario 64 still got the Japanese updates that added rumble functionality to the original Nintendo 64. Fourth, just like the Nintendo 64, the iQue player could also be played with 3 other people through the use of the multiplayer box and multiplayer controllers, so games like Mario Kart 64 and Smash 64 are able to be played exactly the way they were intended to. Edit. Multiplayer box and multiplayer controllers are often mistranslated as swim box and swim controllers that other news outlets like Did You Know Gaming have mistranslated. Here is the correct translation. And finally, all games are stored on a removable NAND memory stick named the iQue card. There are 2 ways to load games onto the iQue player. One was the iQue at-home software, which debuted in 2004. It had a stylish storefront where you could buy and download any games that were released for the iQue player. However, only versions of the iQue player that have the USB connectivity update, like I do, can actually use the iQue at-home software. The other way to get games, only available inside China, was going to one of the many iQue depots around the country. You could put the removable memory card in the depot, pay with a special iQue ticket, and purchase games that were available. The idea of an iQue depot in China is similar to what Nintendo did in Japan with the Famicom Disk System's disc writer kiosks. The packaging of the iQue player is beautiful. On the front, it shows a main system, a model of Mario with a wing cap from Super Mario 64, and the official Nintendo seal, along with some bullet points about the console. On the sides, we get more information about the console, and on the back are multiple screenshots of the games on the iQue player that can be bought and played, plus Majora's Mask, which was unfortunately cancelled before release. The inside of the box stores the warranty papers, the iQue manual, and the manual for Dr. Mario, which is the bundled game that comes with every iQue player. Underneath is the AC adapter, AC cables, a cable to plug into the iQue player, and of course, the iQue player. A total of 14 games were released for the iQue player. Dr. Mario 64, Star Fox 64, Wave Race 64, Super Mario 64, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Mario Kart 64, F-Zero X, Yoshi's Story, Paper Mario, Sin and Punishment, Excite Bike 64, Super Smash Bros., Custom Robo, and Animal Crossing. 2 games were cancelled for the console, which was a traditional Chinese translation of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Overall, the iQue player was not a major success in China, with a poor launch and only around 8,000 to 12,000 units sold. iQue became a fully owned subsidiary of Nintendo in 2013, a year after their last handheld release, the iQue 3DS XL. Even after they were absorbed into Nintendo, the iQue at-home software was still accessible, and owners of the console could still buy new games and load them onto the console with ease. However, in 2016, iQue announced that they would close the purchasing servers for the software, and unfortunately, at the end of 2018, all the rest of the iQue at-home servers were closed for good. People can no longer create iQue Club accounts, which were similar to Club Nintendo, or download new games, which sealed the coffin for iQue and the iQue player. However, throughout the past decade and a half, modders have been working hard on trying to get some of the iQue player's games onto the console, without having to hack into iQue depots or buying them with the iQue at-home software. Basically, doing some shady stuff. And they made absolutely no progress until in early 2018 when modders were finally able to load their own code onto the console. From there, it took another year before they were able to install new games to the iQue menu with their own slot, icon, and ID. Since then, they have slowly but surely been porting new Nintendo 64 games to the console, and overall optimizing the process to make the console easier to mod. As of the date this video is released, they are currently making patches to bring over more Nintendo 64 games and allow them to save, making it easier to mod the console, and add many more small tools and techniques to make it easier to load their own exploits. Here are some Nintendo 64 games that run on the iQue player so far.
Hey, låter musik. Var det gillar var mitt från?
Here we go! I'm ruined! Superstar Soccer.
The iQue player, from the inception of iQue Limited thanks to Wei Yan and Nintendo's partnership, to the fascinating modding scene that's making discoveries left and right, has a lot of interesting history behind it, and an exciting future to go along with it. Hey, you've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching episode 002 of Lost Watch, all about the iQue player. It has been a fun episode to make, and thank you to everybody who has supported me for the past couple months while I've been making this video. Up next is episode 003 of Lost Watch, but I don't know when that's going to come out, so stay tuned. But until next time, I will see you guys later.